Welcome to Impact Makers Radio, featuring industry thought leaders sharing problem-solving insights to help grow your business and live the life you love. And here's your host, Stewart Andrew Alexander.
Hi, and welcome to another Let's Talk Divorce conversation. And on this segment of the show, ladies and gentlemen, I have family law attorney Melissa Fuller Brown, principal of Melissa F. Brown LLC, and she's calling in all the way from Charleston, South Carolina. Now, Melissa, who is considered to be a leader in the area of family law, will be talking to you today about a very interesting topic. She's taken the time out of her day to come along and share some insights about moving beyond your divorce in a secure financial position. Now, that sounds like a really important topic for us to be addressing today. So, if you are one of the increasing amounts of divorcing couples in the Charleston, South Carolina area, you might want to take a break. Log out of Facebook, log out of Twitter, Instagram, or anything else that you happen to be doing which may cause a distraction. You might even want to grab a notepad and pen and take some notes as we listen in to what Melissa has to share with us today. So with that said, let's not keep her waiting any longer. Welcome to the show, Melissa.
Well, thank you, Stuart. I'm excited to be here.
And we are so excited having you along also. So let's just jump straight in. Briefly, in your own words, describe the kinds of people who you serve and the various types of situations they find themselves in when they come to you for your help.
The individuals who hire me are usually those who need a more experienced, knowledgeable family law attorney to resolve what's come about into their life as a marital dispute with their spouse or their partner. And they also often have disputes regarding custody of their children or visitation and time spent with their children. When I see individuals for an initial consultation, they come in usually at one of the lowest points in their lives. Their families are breaking up, they're wounded or feel wounded, and they're very worried about their financial futures. My job then is to help them feel that their life is not crashing around them, but to provide guidance and legal advice that assures them there is life and security after their divorce.
Okay, Melissa, so now we know the kinds of people who you help. Before we go any further, it must be said that anything you share with us from this point on is not legal advice or legal assistance. It's purely for the purpose of sharing information. Now, with that said, my first question for you today then, Melissa, is what's the most common misconception that you come across while you're out there working with those divorcing couples?
Most people think divorce is about who did what, to whom, and why. In reality, divorce and the finances that are involved in the divorce process really are just about the division of assets and debts and how to pay ongoing obligations moving forward. People need to have some security about how they're going to now maintain two separate households versus one and support their children. So despite all the emotions going into the divorce, the most successful litigants are the ones who view the divorce process more like the breakup of a business. They try to remove their emotions as much as possible. Clearly, it's an incredibly emotional time. But those who can compartmentalize their emotions and look more rationally at their divorce, who are prepared and organized, are the ones who end up being most successful once the case is done.
So based on what you just shared with us then, Melissa, and keeping your client's confidentiality in mind, of course, please share an example of how you've helped someone, or an individual or an organization maybe, who came to you with that misconception you described. They came to you with that preconceived notion of who did what to who and why. With that said then, what kind of transformational results were you able to gain for those kinds of people who came to you with that common misconception?
Not long ago, I represented a husband who was in a long-term marriage, and when his wife up and left him, he was completely shocked. His wife was a very successful executive, and she wrote down all their assets and debts for him, and she gave them various values. When he came to see me, he was so wounded and upset, and the pain was so terrific that he just wanted the divorce done. He just wanted to accept her offer and move forward. When I looked at her values, the one thing that really struck me was that she has a retirement plan, a pension plan through her employer that's governed by a federal law called ERISA. ERISA is an Employee Retirement Income Security Act, a federal law. And that law governs pension plans, which are actually, I would analogize them to like a bucket of promises. Once a party retires, they get paid a set amount of money each 2 weeks for the rest of their life. So it's like a bucket of promises to support a person once they retire from their job. Well, she had given a value to this bucket of promises of $150,000, and he was willing to accept that. When I realized it was a pension plan as opposed to an IRA, which is whatever cash amount is on your statement, that's the value of your IRA. A pension plan, whatever's on your statement, is not actually the value of it. So when I took his pension plan to a financial forensic expert who handles divorce cases typically, they valued it at $700,000. And had he accepted his wife's offer and accepted her values without realizing that they had a significant marital asset that was valued at much greater than what she had given it, he would have been out hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Thank you for sharing that very useful insight with us, Melissa. I'm sure the listener will find that to be something to, store away in the back of their minds while they're out there considering their options for divorce. Now then, as a reminder, today's topic is moving beyond your divorce in a secure financial position. Now, with that in mind, and for those divorcing couples wanting to know more, what's the most common but unknown pitfall that they need to avoid no matter what kind of situation they find themselves in?
When they come in to see the divorce lawyer, quite often, people who haven't experienced or used attorneys in other situations in their life don't understand the process. They come in, they're full of emotions, but they come in unprepared. The biggest pitfall is coming in and expecting your lawyer to solve your problems without realizing you are an important part of the team. So the pitfall is being unprepared and unarmed to protect yourself in a divorce. In the divorce, your attorney is as good as the information the attorney has in front of them to advise you. So the pitfall is coming in unprepared. So the tip is come in and meet with your lawyer. Have all your financial documents that you've gathered together, your bank statements, your retirement statements, your Social Security statement that you're mailed by the federal government. Have your insurance policies, your life insurance, health insurance. Bring in your credit card statements. Gather everything. And if you're scared and your spouse has no idea that you're even worrying about a divorce, make copies of all these documents when your spouse is not at home and organize them and put them together, because being prepared and being knowledgeable is invaluable. You can't put a figure on that. So the pitfall is not being knowledgeable about your current financial status, your debts and expenses, and not being prepared to educate your lawyer so your lawyer has the necessary facts to protect you in your case going forward.
So, Melissa, let's talk a little bit about children in divorce. I'm sure the people who come to you for help, some people are ready to mediate. Some people need collaboration. Some people may need straight litigation. However, for me, the silent voice, the voices who don't have any power, are the children. So I'd just like you just to share an insight for those divorcing couples who find themselves in the situations where they are just, they're simply at each other's throat and they're out to outdo each other. And unfortunately, the children are the ones being caught up in the middle. For somebody out there who's listening in and they find themselves in that situation, and regardless of how right they feel they are, because maybe they've been cheated on by their partner, what would you say to that person or to those divorcing couples who have those children caught up in the middle?
I'm so glad you asked me that question, because one of the most difficult aspects of the divorce is controlling your emotions around your children. Mm-hmm. Your children need their parent to be the parent, not to be a victim, not to fall apart. The children need to see that in spite of their family being torn down the middle and their parents living in two separate homes, that their mother and father can still be the strength and the adult that they look to. The other thing that the children want is no matter how bad one parent might be, or even if both parents are misbehaving, they don't want either parent to talk badly about the other parent.
Right.
Having divorced myself, I now have a real understanding of how difficult that can be at times when one of the spouses is so hurt by the other spouse and they want to lash out at the husband or the wife for something they didn't do or expenses they didn't pay or the unfairness that they feel. One must try to make a concerted effort to keep their emotions, the ugly language, the bad behavior toward the other parent away from the children, because all they end up doing is hurt their children emotionally and perhaps even financially, because a divorce takes such a toll. If they can keep the children as separated from the divorce as possible, that's the great parent. That's the parent who can move forward in a healthy way, and that's the parent the children want to spend time with and the parent whom the children gravitate toward.
I'm sat here with a big smile across my face, grinning like a Cheshire cat, as we say in the UK, because the information that you just shared with us, Melissa, it touches my own heart, because I myself am a child of divorce. My parents were divorced when I was 9 years old, and it was a very volatile, very violent divorce, lots of fighting and blood and all kinds of things going on. And I was caught up in the middle of all of that. And the very thing you mentioned, parents talking bad about each other, that's what I experienced. It was almost like being a tennis ball in a game of tennis. Your father's this and your mother's that, and the confusion and not having the voice. I ended up, and my little brother at the same time, we both ended up blaming ourselves and grew up with that into adulthood. And it took us a very long time to deal with the fallout of that, all of the head stuff, the low confidence that comes with that. Fortunately for both of us, we came out on the right side of things. We didn't end up drinking or end up in crime or some of the more horrendous things what children of divorce end up going into. So I'm so glad that you've touched on that point. It's the very reason why I started this series, Let's Talk Divorce, so that divorcing couples out there get to hear perspectives from professionals like yourselves, and in the hope that they just may change their perception, the way how they're looking at each other, and love their children more than themselves and put the children first, and agree to be more amicable throughout this whole unfortunate divorcing process. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for that excellent answer. It's going to be a great resource for the listener out there listening to it today, tomorrow, and even 10 years from now. So thanks for that, Melissa.
When I went through my own divorce, which I would never wish on anyone, I guess the silver lining was that I became a better divorce attorney. Because you can never say you know exactly how someone feels when they go through a divorce. And you can never say that, but I certainly now have a much better understanding of the emotional toll upon parties divorcing that I couldn't even imagine how difficult it was. And I'm so glad you asked that, because I was guilty of sometimes wanting to lash out in front of my children. So thank you for that, because resisting that emotion is very, very difficult for litigants in divorce cases. But they need to be reminded, because when you hear the voices of children speaking about their experience like you, or adults who share how they felt, I think that really helps parents reframe the situation and remove their emotions from it, and helps them look at it through the eyes of their children versus through the ache in their heart.
Exactly. That's why we're doing this today. So thank you again for that, Melissa. So another question, Melissa. So briefly, how long have you been practicing family law? How many years?
Practiced law in general for over 25 years, but family law for 23 and a half years specifically, and that's all I do.
So would it be safe to say you've helped hundreds of people in over 23 and a half years with their divorce cases?
I'd like to think I've helped lots of people, and I also like to think that some people who come to see me, when we meet and I hear their struggles and upsets, I've recommended that they get counseling, that they try to work on their marriage with their spouse. And I'm so pleased to say that I'm not saying that I take the credit, but I love the thought that in today's age, people are so quick to throw in the towel. And I'm so pleased to see marriages that are successful, because marriage is not easy. And today I'm friends with couples that did not go through the divorce process. I'm also friends with my divorce clients. I don't represent any of my friends, but often through the process, I become very close with our divorce clients. My staff becomes very close, and afterwards we keep in touch with many of our clients because they're such great people.
Well, let's expand a little bit on that. Let's just look at a typical day within Melissa Fuller Brown's life. So let's just imagine it's any morning of the week and the alarm clock goes off at 6, 7 a.m. in the morning, and you have a full day's work ahead of you helping those unfortunate people going through a divorce. How does Melissa feel on a day like that? Are you still motivated even after 23 and a half years?
I am. And the reason I'm motivated, because it brings me so much joy when people thank me later on for helping them through this horrible process.
Right.
And they're fascinating. Everyone has their own story. And when I can be a part of it, and quite often they're not happy, and most aren't happy through the divorce process, and it's painful, and legal fees can be expensive. But when they appreciate the efforts that I have invested in their divorce, that my staff has invested, they realize that we are here for the greater good of their family. We aren't here to destroy their spouse. We're not here to help them win everything. I mean, that's really not a win. These are families. After they leave us, except we are blessed to remain friends with so many of our clients, but they remain connected in cases where they have children. And we don't need to destroy those relationships. We need to help them get a fair, equitable, and what's in their children's best interest. And I think one thing that helps me is that when I interview initial clients, I tell them that I'm interviewing them too, because I'm not the right attorney for everyone. So if a potential client's goal is to destroy their spouse or keep their spouse from their children, that's not the right client for me, and I'm not the right attorney for them. So I'm blessed to say that when I ask my clients if their children are their number one goal, to protect them and do what's right for them, that allows me to do the right thing and not act as a hired gun, but to act in what's in the family's best interest. At least that's our goal.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Melissa. I still like to stick on the topic of speaking about you, but this time from the perspective of your background, and especially in terms of your formal education and your experience as it relates to the topic of family law.
Sure. My father was a lawyer, so from the time I was a little girl, I was exposed to lawyers and the law and wanted to become a lawyer when I grew up. I went to college at the University of Virginia, and after I graduated from law school, I knew I wanted to be a litigator. That was my goal. I became a prosecutor and was trying cases in criminal court. Then I had my first child, and I had the opportunity to go work for one of the top family lawyers in the state. I never sought out to become a family law attorney, but once I found myself in the situation, I loved it. And the reason I loved it was not loving people getting divorced. I loved helping people who found themselves in that situation. So as I began working on family law cases and working with one of the top lawyers, I had a role model who taught me how to practice family law ethically and properly, how to educate myself and to invest in going to continuing legal education seminars. And as I grew as a lawyer, I became more involved in organizations where divorce lawyers were members. Became very active in our state family law section and became chair. Then I ended up setting a goal for myself to become a fellow in the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers, which is a group of about 1,600 lawyers from across the country. And to become a member, you have to be accepted by your state chapter and take a test, and then you have to be accepted by the national chapter. And ultimately, I became a fellow in the American Academy, and through that, I became an international fellow in the American Academy of Family Lawyers. So throughout that process, each organization, each group, each opportunity to grow as a family law attorney helped me become a better lawyer, helped me become more experienced, and helped me help my clients when they ask me questions. I often have the law and the knowledge on the tip of my tongue because I've immersed myself into this particular area. Now, if they ask me bankruptcy questions or questions about how to do a real estate closing, I have no clue. But as to family law, I can help any client who comes through my door.
So, Melissa, I'd like you to picture the kinds of divorcing couples who come to you for a consultation. And yeah, they're wanting to move beyond their divorce in a secure financial position, which is our topic for today. Now, with that picture in mind, what final thoughts would you like to leave with those listeners before we move on to our last question for today?
Well, the finances with a couple are a lot more complex than these wreck cases or other cases, a personal injury case. That people can have hundreds of thousands of dollars in assets or debts or millions. So the one thing they need to do is they need to do their homework. No one would go hire their OBGYN to do a root canal. So when they hire a lawyer to represent them in a family law case, and they have assets, significant assets and significant income, they need to research which lawyers have experience handling complex cases involving assets, involving the valuation, as I mentioned earlier, the pension plan that is governed by ERISA, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act. If they have significant assets in those areas, they need a lawyer who works with other experts. In almost every case, I employ a forensic financial expert who helps me put together the marital asset addendum, who helps advise my clients about the tax consequences of various assets. You want someone who understands that if you divide stocks, that when you go to speak with your lawyer, they don't let you accept the stock that's, say, for example, you have stocks in IBM and Disney, and say both the 100 shares of Disney is worth $50,000 and 100 shares of IBM is worth $50,000. Well, they're not really each worth $50,000 if one set of some stocks shares were bought at a much lower value. There's a tax consequence called the basis, and if the basis is very low and the stock value has risen, when they sell that stock, they're going to pay taxes on it. They need a lawyer that knows these sorts of this sort of information off the top of their head, who's knowledgeable. It's not going to make a novice error that could have huge financial consequences upon an individual's future. So my biggest tip is do your homework. If you have assets and debts and income, or your spouse has a high income and you need alimony and child support to continue living the lifestyle that you become accustomed, you need to hire a lawyer who knows how to handle those sorts of cases.
Well, Melissa, after 23 and a half years as a family law attorney, I'm sure that everything you've shared with us today is just scratching the tip of the iceberg. However, we are out of time. So if there is someone out there who feels they want to know more about moving beyond divorce in a secure financial position, how could they reach you? Where would they find you, Melissa?
Anyone is welcome to call my office. My office phone number is 843-722-8900. I also have a website where I offer a number of resources for potential clients. Whether they hire me or not, I have a number of articles and information, particular to South Carolina litigants, that would help them through the divorce process, that would educate them and help hold their hand before they even go meet with a lawyer, to be prepared, as I suggested earlier, that the most successful litigants are prepared. My website is found at www.scdivorcelaw.com. Please go onto that site and download articles. I also have a list of books that are helpful in custody cases, books even to reach your children if you're going through a divorce. And interestingly, a number of those books talk about why it's not the children's fault. And the books are catered to different ages of children. And as you shared, about your own family's divorce and the impact upon you as a child. There's some wonderful resources for parents to help their children through the divorce process as well on my website.
Thank you so much for that, Melissa. And we'll also ensure that all of your contact details are on the website underneath your show. Unfortunately, we are out of time for today. So again, as a reminder, that was family law attorney Melissa Fuller-Brown. Thank you so much for sharing so generously today with us, Melissa. You have certainly demonstrated without a doubt that you are a true educator, advocate, and trustworthy advisor for your client's success. So thank you.
Well, Stewart, thank you for the honor of talking with me. It was truly a pleasure.
You are so welcome, Melissa, my dear. And also, I'd like to say a big thank you to you, the listener. It's unfortunate that you may find yourself in that position of facing a divorce or going through a divorce, and we hope that with today's interview that we've been able to at least point you in the direction and give you some insights that are going to be helpful to you. So again, thanks for joining us on what I can only describe as a very insightful and informative conversation with one of the leading family law attorneys in the Charleston, South Carolina area today. Again, her name was Melissa Fuller-Brown. Remember her name. Make sure you do check her out. Give her a call, send her an email, visit the website, download those articles. They sound like they're really great resources for you and a good place to start. So no matter what you do, I am convinced after today's interview that you're going to be in very good hands. So that's it. Again, my name is Stewart Andrew Alexander, and we'll be back shortly with some more leading family law professionals in this, our series of Let's Talk Divorce Conversations. So, until then, folks, take care, have a great day, and we'll talk real soon.
Thank you for tuning in to Impact Makers Radio. To listen to all past, present, and future industry thought leaders and trendsetters, visit us at impactmakersradio.com.